Hey guys, welcome to my channel. My name is Dr. Tom LaHue. I want to thank you for joining me, and today we're going to talk about your marriage. And the question I have for you as we go into this Halloween season is your marriage haunted? And we're going to get to that in just a minute. 5 different ghosts that I think that could haunt your marriage and keep you from having the kind of marriage that you always dreamed of and hoped for. Just a reminder, in the description below is a link to my website, tomlahue.com. I do coaching, transformation coaching, relationship coaching, Enneagram coaching. All of it's based on the Enneagram. So if you love the Enneagram but you're not sure what to do next, check out my webpage. I'd love to meet with you and help you on your journey. So we're going to talk about marriage today. And you say, well, Tom, what do you know about marriage? Well, my wife Traci and I have been married for 32 years. We dated all through high school, got married young. We dated for 4 years and got married just before my 20th birthday. And we've been married for 32 years. We have 5 kids. We've got right now 4 grandkids and number 5's on the way. So I've learned a little bit along the way about marriage. My mom and dad were married for over 50 years. Her mom and dad were married for over 50 years, and I've had some great examples. None of them perfect, but I've had some great examples in my family to observe. And as a pastor working in the church, in the local church, for over 30 years, I've seen a lot of good, bad, and ugly in marriages. And just because people are good people or are Christian people does not mean they know how to show up very well to a marriage. So let's talk about 5 of the potential ghosts that could haunt your marriage. And I got a little list here, and we're just going to go through them one at a time and talk about them. Number 1, communication breakdown. You know what it's like to have all these things going on in your mind that you want to say, but not knowing where to begin, not knowing how to say them, not being able to deal with conflicts well. And I always say, when you can't have your conflicts out loud, you get to have them in private. You get to have them in silence, and that's not very comfortable. It's not very happy to have a marriage where there's all this unresolved conflict and not able to really communicate, not being able to really sit down and talk. Sometimes people will avoid conflict because they don't want to give time to it. They want to stay focused on their football games, or they want to stay focused on their hobbies, or stay focused on something positive, and they know there's all this built-up frustration, and they don't want to deal with it. Sometimes we have problems communicating because we're lazy, and we'd rather just watch TV. We don't really want to focus our attention on somebody else and what they're saying. And when we do this, we're not really sharing our needs or concerns. The relationship isn't being taken care of, and problems are going to result when we can't communicate. When we get our feelings hurt, when we get angry, when we're not really responsive to one another, there's going to be problems. So the ghost number 1 that haunts and inhabits our marriage could be communication breakdown. Number 2 is a lack of trust. Ooh, this one's going to be touchy. This one's not going to feel good. But whether this is caused by infidelity or dishonesty, maybe you've run up a credit card bill that you don't want your spouse to know about, or you've got some habits that are not so pleasant that you don't want to talk about, some secrets. These things, this lack of trust erodes at the foundation of the marriage. And people are going to feel betrayed. They're going to feel like you've been dishonest with them, like you haven't been genuine, you haven't been authentic. And they're going to wonder going forward, if we can't trust one another, how can we really be there to depend on one another? And so when the relationship lacks this trust, it's hard to build on when there's no real genuine intimacy there. So number 2, a lack of trust. And you may wonder, what do I do? How do I come back from this? How do we come back from this? If they've lied to me and they've been dishonest with me, and they've had this whole secret life going on that I found out about, whether it's financial or whether it's sexual or whether it's, where they're spending their time or their money, how do we come back from that? I remember a couple years ago where the husband had lost his job. And for two weeks straight, he got up, got dressed, and went to work as though everything was normal. He never shared with his wife that he lost his job. He just got up and pretended to go to work every day because he didn't know how to tell her. He didn't know how to tell her that he'd lost his job. Now, he was a type 9, and he didn't like conflict, and he didn't want to upset anybody. And so he would just go sit on the park bench and and try to hope that everything would work out. Obviously, eventually, he had to fess up and tell his wife that he lost his job, and it only made things worse. The fact that he'd been lying to her for the last 2 weeks made the problem worse. How do we come back from that? Number 3 is financial strain and financial disagreements. You know, whether you like it or not, or want to believe it or not, finances is a big part of our lives. And it's probably one of the 3 major killers of marriages. When you think about marriages ending up in divorce, probably number 1 is finances and financial problems and financial stress. The other 2 would be sexual problems and, physical frustrations. And number 3 would probably be the all of the outlaws, in-laws, parenting problems, everybody else around your marriage that is creating an unhealthy dynamic for you and your spouse. But this financial issue, please get help. It's so easy to end up upside down financially. It's so easy. In this economy, we're all struggling to pay our bills. We're all struggling to stay our heads above water. And, your paycheck is less and less. And taxes are going up and expenses are going up and rent is ridiculous. And it's $1 million to buy a car and insurance is going up. And so all of this creates a stress or a strain on your marriage. And if you haven't looked into Financial Peace University or Dave Ramsey, let me encourage you to take responsibility for your finances and do whatever it takes without breaking the law to create a plan to get out of debt as fast as possible, as much as possible, to make all you can, save all you can, give away all you can, take care of all your responsibilities. And if you have to get a second job in order for everybody in your house to feel safe and to feel comfortable, to get out of this financial mess that you've gotten yourself into, I'm not blaming you. There's 1,000 reasons why it's easy to end up in financial problems. Nobody's coming to bail you out. Nobody's going to pay off your debt for you. Nobody's going to come in and rush in. If you have somebody that does, praise the Lord. You're the exception to the rule. But you got to have a plan. You got to have a budget. You got to run with intensity on this issue. But realize that it can very much affect and negatively affect your marriage. Maybe one of the best things you could say to your spouse right now is, "I'm getting a second job. I realize that we're in financial problems. I'm sorry for the bills that I've run up. I'm sorry for my hobbies. I'm sorry for the expenses that I've got a second job. I'm going to be Uber driving. I'm going to be door dashing. I'm going to be pizza delivering. I'm going to, get a job at Walmart, grocery store, whatever it takes until we get out of this financial pit that we are in." So the third ghost that could be inhabiting and haunting your marriage is one of financial pressure. So what do we got so far? We got communication breakdown. We got a lack of trust. We got financial strain and disagreements. Number 4, neglecting emotional and physical intimacy. Now this is a big one. This means you're not really present for your marriage. You're not really 100% involved or a participant in this. You're more like a consumer. You're waiting for the other person to take care of you and then frustrated when they're not. You're filled with disappointment, bitterness, resentment, and these things are killers. These things are killers to your marriage. But let me just say it like this. You take each other for granted. You've lived with each other for so long, you take each other for granted. You're no longer excited to be around one another. You're not appreciating. You're taking each other for granted. You're not admiring. You don't see the good. You see the negative. You see all the problems. You see all the flaws. You wish things were different. You're not showing up with a mindset of how can I serve or how can I demonstrate care? How can I give? How can I support? You're showing up with this expectation that they should be taking care of me. They should be providing for me. They should be doing what I want to do. And you're going to be filled with resentment, frustration, disappointment. That's guaranteed what's going to happen. All of us go into a marriage with some basic needs. We have the need for affection. All of the non-sexual ways that we communicate love and importance of the other person. We have a need for admiration or appreciation or validation, whatever you want to call it. But those words of affirmation, We all have a need for financial stability. We all have a need for domestic support and to take care of all the needs around the house. We all have this list of needs that we bring into a marriage. And when those needs are given attention to by your spouse, you feel fantastic. You feel cared for, you feel loved, you feel appreciated. Sexual fulfillment is one of those needs. Recreational companion is one of those needs. There's a lot of needs that we bring into a marriage. And you're not a bad person for having needs. I know some of you guys want to be so independent and so autonomous that you have a hard time seeing yourself as a person that shows up and needs somebody else in your life. But the reality is we all have these expectations and needs. And no one person can fully meet all of these needs. So in a sense, we do have something to grieve and we have to let other people off the hook. But we need to learn what our needs are and be willing to express those needs and be willing to express that we are a person that has needs. And then know what our spouse's needs are and then make every effort we can to try to meet those needs. While at the same time, refusing to use these failed strategies of anger and manipulation, coercion, all these things that don't really work to bring about the marriage that we want. So, neglecting emotional and physical intimacy. Emotional intimacy is you showing up willing to connect with the other person. Through words, through actions, through touch, all of these ways that you communicate that the other person is important to you and that you want to be connected to them. And then number 5, this is probably the worst one in my opinion. The biggest one, the one I see over and over again in marriages that I work with in my coaching, is unresolved past hurts. Unresolved past hurts. And this, I could put the word resentment here. I could put the word bitterness here, frustration, disappointment, but holding on to all these past grievances. Some people are list keepers. Others of us, we just kind of lose that information. We get hurt, we get frustrated, we move on, and we have a hard time keeping track of all the reasons we might be upset. I mean, we might be upset, but we have a hard time listing it out. Other people, they keep a very clear list. You know what the Bible says, 1 Corinthians 13 is love keeps no records of wrongs. But maybe you don't feel like you can help it. You got this list of all these past hurts, these unkind things that were said, these unkind expressions, these rude and hateful responses, and these thoughtless, careless, angry words and actions that have been said over the years. They start to build up and multiply, and it's just like cancer inside the body. It's like pus, it's like venom. It's just this awful mixture, this concoction that results in a general frustration, disappointment, and disconnection from the marriage. Unresolved past hurts, holding on to past grievances, not being able to forgive or not forgiving or not seeing yourself as able to forgive. And maybe your spouse just doesn't know how to apologize. That's one of the things we can work on, is just learning how to apologize in a way that is important to each other. Did you know there's at least 5 different ways to apologize? And maybe you're going around in circles because your spouse doesn't know the right way to apologize to you. They keep asking for forgiveness and they won't take responsibility for what they did. And until they take responsibility for what they did, or until they admit that they were wrong, it's never really going to resonate with you. So not forgiving or failing to address and resolve the underlying issues, hoping that it'll just take care of themselves, hoping that it'll work itself out. Sometimes people will treat each other awfully and then they just go on as though tomorrow like nothing happened. And they never really clean up their mess. And you can imagine if you drop a bunch of dishes on the floor and you smash them and there's glass and broken china everywhere, and then you just try to live as though nothing happened, you just try to go on as though nothing really took place, you're going to cut yourself and hurt yourself. And many marriages are like this. They're not safe because they don't ever really clean up or resolve any of the brokenness that has already happened. So unresolved past anger, past resentment leads to a toxic, bitter environment that nobody's going to find happiness in. So addressing these challenges, these ghosts that haunt your marriage, addressing them, calling the medium to move these ghosts on and clean out this house. Let's do a little ghost busting. I'm so cringy. That's what my daughter would say. Understanding, effort, and professional guidance when necessary to help you restore the health and joy to your marriage. What do I want for you? It's simple. I'm a 7 wing 6. I want you to be happy. I want you to have joy. I want you to look forward to coming home to your spouse and to your family and to your kids like it's the best thing in the world. I want when your spouse comes home for you to meet them at the door and treat them better than the dog does. You know, when I walk in the door, my dog comes running at me. I'm happy to see you. I'm happy to see you. That's how I want us as married couples, as families, to treat one another. To have joy, to have happiness, to have excitement, to have enthusiasm. And look, I just want you to realize everything could change right now in your marriage. It all starts with you feeling a sense of urgency that things aren't the way they ought to be. Things really aren't the way they're supposed to be. And I've been a part of this problem. I can't just wait for them to change. I have to take responsibility for myself. I have to take responsibility for my words, my actions, my behaviors. And because I'm taking responsibility, I know that whatever a man sows, he reaps. I want to start sowing something different today. I want to change the trajectory of my marriage. And when you do that, you are changing your whole life. You are changing your whole family, the whole destiny of everybody in your family. I'm not exaggerating. If your marriage is sour, everything is sour in your life. There's a gray cloud over your work. There's a gray cloud over your entertainment, over your fun. Everything's just gross. Everything just feels awful. All of that can change. It's not going to happen overnight, but it can start today. Do you long for the days when you and your wife used to walk hand in hand and laugh and love each other? Do you long for the days when you used to have this emotional connection? You remember what it was like when you were starting out, when you were young, when you were coming together as a couple? Do you remember you couldn't get off the phone with each other? You opened the door and complimented one another. And she was the most beautiful person you ever saw. And he was strong and ruggedly handsome. And you loved being together. And now look at you. Opposite ends of the house, opposite ends of every topic, opposite ends of every discussion, can't get along, afraid to speak up, don't want to say anything. There's all this bitterness that's backed up and all this resentment that's backed up. And if you just touch it the wrong way, like with a pin, it's going to pop and it's just going to escalate. And it's so uncomfortable. And it doesn't have to be this way. I don't want it this way for you. I'm committed to your happiness. I'm committed to your joy. Let's work together. All right. Be present to life, guys. Get these ghosts out of your marriage. Get these ghosts out of your house. They don't belong. You need to take back your home. Take back your marriage. Take back your family. And ask God to help you to show up fully to your life, to show up fully to your marriage. All right, guys, be present, and I'm wishing and hoping and praying better things for you in the future. I'll see you next time.